Welcome to today's explainer. All right, let's just dive right into this because, well, we're going on a bit of a detective adventure today. Have you ever thought about the natural world around us? The trees, the dirt, the mountains, the sky, as a giant open book? The source text we're looking at today suggests exactly that. It tells us that nature is literally packed cover to cover with clues about its creator. And the absolute best part is, you don't need to be stuck in a classroom to read this book. You really just have to step outside.
Now, this brings us to a massive question, especially if you're, say, 10 years old and really trying to figure out how the world works. Have you ever wondered how we actually know God is real? I mean, it's a huge question, right? You can't just see him the way you see your friends or your family. But the reading we're exploring today tells us that if we want to see the evidence, we literally just need to look around us. So we're going to use the clues in nature to solve this mystery together.
Moving into Section 1, Clues in Tiny Things, the Master Artist's Gallery.
Before we go looking at the giant things out there, we have to look really closely at the simple stuff. The text says that God speaks to your senses through familiar things. He uses stuff you can see, touch, smell, and hear every single day to, impress divine truth right onto your soul. You don't have to go digging for a glowing magic rock. You just have to look at the everyday stuff in your own backyard with an open heart. If you let your heart receive these impressions, nature literally becomes your teacher. So, what kind of familiar things are we actually talking about here? Well, we're talking about lofty, tall trees, every single flower that opens up in the spring. And, okay, this is my personal favorite, leaves with delicate veins. Seriously, the next time you go outside, just pick up a leaf. Look closely at those tiny, perfectly drawn lines running all through it. The text calls this the infinite skill of the great master artist. It's almost like walking through a gallery where every tiny detail proves that God's plans are perfect. It's not some random accident. It's an absolute masterpiece.
All right, Section 2, Mountains, the Frozen Waves, zooming out to the massive. Now, to really understand the sheer scale of creation, think about those tiny, fragile veins of a leaf we just talked about and compare them to towering, lofty mountains. The text makes a really bold claim here. It says neither of these is the result of chance. Whether it's something small enough to fit right in your pocket, like a delicate little leaf, or something so massively huge it literally touches the clouds, they both speak in silent eloquence about the one who sits on the throne of the universe. To help us wrap our heads around the mountains, the author gives us this amazing picture. Just listen to this. Lofty mountains resemble grand old castles with rocky battlements. I mean, I absolutely love that description. If you've ever seen a massive mountain range, they really do look like giant stone fortresses built for a king, right? Just standing guard over the earth. But how did these giant rock castles get there? Well, the text gives us a pretty epic history lesson.
The text explains that these mountains were actually formed during a massive ancient flood, showing God's desolating wrath. I want you to imagine earth-shattering storms and these mighty, gigantic waves rising up, taller than anything you can picture. But then, right in the middle of all that chaos, the voice of God speaks. And suddenly, those massive waves just stop. They stand completely still and become the towering mountains we see today.
The author uses this incredible phrase to describe it. They say, they are like mighty waves that at the voice of God stood still, stiffened billows arrested in their proudest swell. Now, I know stiffened billows sounds a bit fancy, but it's really just an old-fashioned way of saying frozen ocean waves. Next time you see a mountain, I want you to picture exactly that. It's like a giant wave that was right about to crash, but God said stop, and it instantly turned to solid rock. Now that is some serious power.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that all of this belongs to God. The towering mountains, the rocky fastnesses, all the hidden wealth inside the underground mines, the gold, the diamonds, and the absolute deepest places of the earth. He presides over the whole shebang. Knowing that he commands that kind of extreme power, that should definitely inspire some serious awe and reverence in us.
Moving on to Section 3, our unbreakable rock, a safe place in the storm.
So get this, God doesn't just use his power to make massive frozen rock waves. He uses that exact same unbeatable power to protect you. The text calls God the Rock of Ages. What that means is he's a steadfast refuge, an unbreakable hiding place, and a true shelter from the storms of life. Think of it like playing tag. He is the ultimate safe zone where you can never, ever get caught. No matter what scary or hard things happen in life, God is the unbreakable rock you can hide behind. He is a refuge for his people. He's a covert, which, by the way, is just a really cool word for a secret hiding place. from the storm, and he is a shadow from the burning heat. Have you ever been outside on one of those scorching, sweaty summer days and you finally step under the deep, cool shade of a big tree or a giant rock? That feeling of instant relief and safety? That's exactly what the text says God is like for us.
And our final part, section 4. Promises stronger than mountains, the ultimate guarantee.
Remember those giant mountains we just talked about earlier? The ones made of frozen stone waves? They seem pretty strong and immovable, right? I mean, you can't just push a mountain out of the way. But the text says God's promises to you are actually more firm and immovable than those giant mountains. No way, right? But it's absolutely true.
The author drops this incredibly reassuring quote here. Listen to this. The mountains shall depart and the hills shall be removed, but his kindness shall not depart, nor his covenant of peace be removed. Think about that for a second. Even if the biggest, heaviest mountains on earth somehow just packed up and left, God's kindness toward you isn't going anywhere. His promise of peace is permanently glued to you if you put your trust in him.
So what are we supposed to do with all this information? Well, the text gives us one final instruction. Look at the mountains again. What do? They point straight up. The text says we need to look to God for help just as steadfastly as those rocky, barren mountains point to the heavens above them. If we always keep our eyes pointed up toward God, we will never be moved from our faith in him. We'll stand just as strong as the mountains do.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer today, and I want to leave you with a question to kind of chew on. The next time you step outside and look at a tiny leaf on a tree or stare up at a really tall hill or mountain, what will it tell you about the master artist? The clues are out there in God's open book, just waiting for you to find them. Thanks so much for joining me on this adventure, and keep exploring.